Good morning, Cedar Falls, and welcome to tonight's committee meetings. I'll call this meeting to order, and we will start with a roll call from Madam Clerk.
Schultz.
Here.
DeBoer. Here. Cruz.
Here.
Harding.
Here.
Ganfield.
Here.
Sayers.
Here.
Dunn.
Here.
All members present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We have 3 items on the agenda tonight for the first section of our committee meetings for finance and business operations. The first one is a update from Grow Cedar Valley, and I think we will start out with a update from Mike Malero.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Or good morning, whichever it is. Mike Malero, 1007 Carriage Lane, Cedar Falls, Iowa. Also CEO of EGM Group, and tonight I'm here in my capacity as chair of the Grow Cedar Valley Board. We're going to give you our semi-annual update on activities from Grow Cedar Valley, which are working on behalf of you and other constituents in the Cedar Valley to grow our economy. As a reminder, Grow Cedar Valley represents one of the organizations that represents the economic interests of our community, both business and institutions that have an interest in our economy, growing existing businesses that are here, attracting new businesses to be here, attracting workforce to be here, and everything else that surrounds the things that are needed to have a vibrant economy and a growing economy. So one other thing I want to make sure you know is we're an organization that has broad-based support across the community. Hundreds and hundreds of businesses that are members of our organization, including all the major businesses in our community. Just on our executive committee, for example, of our organization, of the executive committee members, senior executive at John Deere is represented on that group, senior executive at Unity Point, also VGM, so among some other companies. So a majority of everybody who's employed in the Cedar Valley is represented through Grow Cedar Valley, which I think is important to note. With that, let me turn it over to Lisa Skubal, who's our VP of Economic Development, to give her portion of the update on economic development activities.
Thank you, Mike, and good afternoon. I'll take good afternoon because good morning and good evening were already taken. We continue to appreciate your collaboration with us. We always have over the many years, and we've along the way done some wonderful projects together that still breed a lot of new investment and quality jobs to the city of Cedar Falls. This afternoon, I wanted to talk about the activity we've seen since our last update in November and what we have for plan to do for promoting Cedar Falls in the next fiscal year. Grow Cedar Valley has realized 9 new project leads from November actually through this morning for the city of Cedar Falls. Of those 25 active projects in Cedar Falls, now I know it differs a little bit from what you have in your packet because that was through April, but I decided because we had to delay giving you the update by 1 month, I'll go ahead and make it current. With those 25 active projects, we had 1 site visit, and that was earlier this year, which Shane helped lead the Cedar Falls portion, as well as Mayor and Ron Gaines. It was a very good meeting, and the city of Cedar Falls is still on the company's radar screen. From the 9 new projects, 8 of those were lead opportunities were generated from Grow Cedar Valley's domestic marketing outreach. 4 virtual prospect visits as of this morning, and 4 companies were visited in Illinois last month. The lead since November has been predominantly durable goods manufacturing and non-durable goods manufacturing. These conversations that we've been having with these leads have been directly with companies as opposed to site selection consultants. At times, it can be heavy weighted or even weighted with leads where either 50% talking directly to the companies themselves and 50% with the site selection consultants. So those relationships with consultants remain important for us for that reason. In April, we attended the Site Selection Guild annual conference. We were able to start and reestablish relationships with 26 consultants during the 2-day event. Next month, we will be participating in a virtual table talk promoting Cedar Falls and surrounding areas to 7 leading site selection consultants in a rotating in a 2-hour time frame. So you imagine 15 minutes to sell your community one at a time. So at the end of the 2 hours, you're pretty wiped out. In May, we attended the Select USA Annual Conference in Washington, D.C. This conference is held annually by the U.S. Department of Commerce, and the purpose of the conference is to attract foreign direct investment to the United States from international companies and investors. Grow Cedar Valley marketed Cedar Falls in the Cedar Valley under the State of Iowa booth. We were participating co-sponsors along with a few other communities. At the booth, 7 soft leads were generated with 1 active project, and then we were able to have an additional 3 one-on-one meetings ourselves with expanding international companies. We were able to set those meetings up in advance. Shane Graham also attended the summit and was able to participate in some of those individual meetings. Grow Cedar Valley has already budgeted for participation in Select USA for next June, and we will continue to plan a co-exhibit with the state of Iowa again. We're hoping to increase the number of one-on-one visits we had in May by planning and collaborating with Shane for appointments with companies during the trade show. So hopefully by us dividing and conquering, that will lead to more lead generation and more appointments next June. The week of June 19th, I made in-person visits with companies in the Chicagoland area, with 4 appointments occurring during a matter of a few days. There was a 5th appointment that we had to reschedule, and it's rescheduled virtually for next Monday because the gentleman wasn't able to meet with us because of other obligations. The opportunity for lead generation in this market is good. We anticipate visiting a similar appointment trip next year, or this fiscal year, I should say. It may be a combination hybrid in-person meetings. We find it sometimes challenging to find one week that works for every company that may want to have a conversation with us, so that's why I say hybrid. We're also experimenting with LinkedIn targeted marketing by promoting the certified sites in both Cedar Falls and Waterloo to C-level executives. We even put together a short video on that we're collaborating with the state of Iowa on their LinkedIn profile to push that out. I thought about bringing the video here and showing on the screen, but I wasn't sure how effective it will work. So following this meeting, probably tomorrow, we'll be sending over a copy of that video for Shane, and he can distribute it appropriately so you can see it. And it can be reused again, but the purpose of it is to promote the Cedar Falls certified site. We plan to again next year, this fiscal year, do a similar collaboration with IEDA and their advertising agency. We are awaiting data from the state because we did this initiative the end of May, the 1st of June, to see how successful the engagement was and be able to fine-tune it the next time. We will, like I said, repeat this collaboration with IEDA this coming year, but internally we want to explore additional marketing opportunities that we can do ourselves directly on LinkedIn. So, and you'll hear from Nicole in a bit. She won't talk about it, but Nicole and I are figuring out how that'll work out for us internally. We can take questions at the end, and I'll just turn over the mic to Stephanie to give you an update on talent attraction and retention initiatives. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Stephanie Detweiler, Director of Workforce and Talent at Grow Cedar Valley. I think the last time that we gave an update, I shared how I had been meeting with HR professionals from different companies around Cedar Falls, Waterloo, and the Cedar Valley. One of the pieces of feedback that I got from those HR professionals was that they really appreciated a wage and benefit survey that we had done a couple years ago. So that was a huge focus of my effort the last 6 months, was getting that back. So we partnered with UNI and also our Cedar Valley Regional Partnership to do a wage and benefit survey to provide for our employers in the area, to really give them an idea of how competitive they are with their wages and benefits so they can attract and retain the best talent possible. We put that out we got the feedback from them in March and then gave it back to them in April to the companies that participated, and I think it was really value added. We've heard really good feedback from them, and our plan is to do that at least every 1 to 2 years to provide that resource to our employers. Another thing that I shared last time was that I put together a workforce advisory council, and that's comprised of, at this point, it's 6 HR professionals. There are 2 from employers in Cedar Falls, so Western Home and Target Distribution. And their whole purpose is to kind of advise me on what the relevant things for me to be working on. And so one of the things that they really thought was beneficial to start with is to create a retention survey to understand what factors make people decide to leave the community, and so we can kind of try to combat that before they would leave the community. So the survey, our goal was to get 1,000 people to participate, and we hit that goal, which was pretty cool. And the top 3 reasons why somebody would leave the Cedar Valley was weather, which obviously we can't do anything about that, job opportunities, and then entertainment and things to do. So what we've decided to come together, and it's really Nicole, who will be talking in a second here, Nicole and I have really been collaborating on how do we promote living in the Cedar Valley a lot more. So that's kind of another focus, a portion of my work and a lot of Nicole's too, that she'll share more about. But it was really good feedback that we got, and we hope to maybe continue surveys like that in the future to see if we're in the right place. But I'll let Nicole talk more about our Live the Valley campaign and what we're doing in that space.
Hello, I can't say good morning, good evening, nothing. Hi, I'm Nicole Salas, and I am our communications director. And like Stephanie mentioned, we are focusing, using the data to focus on lifestyle and placemaking initiatives in the Cedar Valley. One of the things that we're really getting behind is our Live the Valley campaign. We are using that to attract and also to retain a stronger workforce so that we can strengthen our workforce, so new people to come to the Cedar Valley, as well as keeping those individuals here so that they understand the value of it. One of the big things that we're doing is focusing on an influencer campaign. And if you think about an influencer, then just think about it as a testimony on steroids is how we're describing it. We have identified 8 individuals that represent a diverse target market in our community, that are really looking at some of the job industries that we have to offer here. And we're using those individuals and not only showing their lifestyle, but we're also sending them to unique experiences that we have to offer here in the Cedar Valley. So we're putting effort behind that, we're putting dollars behind that so that we can send a message out to the world of what we have to offer here. So that's one of our campaigns that we're getting ready to launch. We have also been doing a number of different campaigns. In the last 3 to 6 months, we've actually had about 7,000 new users that have come to our website, and we've increased our brand awareness. So we are making traction when it comes to getting the word out of what we have to offer in the Cedar Valley, and Live the Valley is one of the ways that we're doing that. We're also offering another tool, which is our Livability magazine. We're starting our 2024 effort right now. We're getting ready to shoot the cover, and we're collecting different content that will be included in that, which will be included Cedar Falls, Waterloo, Waverly, Hudson, and Evansdale, and all of the Cedar Valley. So we've gotten some great contributions. We're really excited about it. We know that the tools have been helpful when it comes to recruiting, when it comes to our HR professionals, and when it also comes to our airports and different locations here in the Cedar Valley. So we're really excited about the effort. We're going to continue it, and we hope that we get your support and your excitement around it. And with that said, I would like to introduce our CEO and our fearless leader, Carrie.
I don't know about fearless, but leader, I am honored to be. So, Carrie Dara, Grow Cedar Valley. I've been in front of you many, many times, either in this position or with my Main Street days, so it's good to see you all. First of all, I want to thank our team members that are here today. The ones that you've heard from are directly related to the pieces of the contract that we have with the City of Cedar Falls, so we wanted you to be sure to hear what their actions and activities are. But we have several more people that work on our team. Jim is here. We've got Benita and Barb and Sandy, who all work on the operations and the networking and the community development side of Grow Cedar Valley. So we are a small representation of the larger group. Also want to thank Mike Malero. He takes time out of his busy day, but this is important to him, as you could see, not only as our board chair for last fiscal year, but he's agreed to stay on this year. And it makes a big, big difference when you have that continuity. I mean, you all know that too. If you were just on council 1 year, you'd just get up to speed and then you'd be moving on. So it was very, very important to us to have Mike stay on another year, and he agreed to do that along with the rest of the executive committee. So you heard the updates from the gang. You know what we're doing, and it is workforce, workforce, workforce. But everything between placemaking, livability, traditional economic development all has to do with the workforce, and that's what we're hearing loud and clear from not only you, but all of our stakeholders. In closing, I just want to reiterate some of what you already heard from our team, but the three major areas in the messaging and making sure that we are doing a better job of demonstrating and messaging and communicating the value of economic development, not only what we're doing, but what you're doing, what Shane's doing, what the City of Waterloo, doing a better job of really getting that message out about what all is going on, regardless of who's responsible for it, because there are a lot of great stories out there that can be told. The other thing is a bigger and bolder message on our workforce, because we don't only want to attract people to come here and remind those who are here to stay here, but we want people to come back, people who used to be here, and that's what the reunions are all about at Sturgis Falls, and making sure that we really tap into that target of people who have some sense of familiarity of the Cedar Falls and the Cedar Valley, but maybe not the new and up and coming Cedar Falls. So how do we get out in front of those folks? And then finally, as we all who have worked together with Stephanie and Jen and Ron and Shane on lots of projects, specifically the Destination Iowa project that came together last year. We pulled together with their help and with the City of Waterloo and some other folks, Intercog, to go after that resource that we didn't qualify. We didn't get the grant, as you all know. But we need to be better able, moving in the future, to not wait until those resources are in front of us. We need to start putting packages together, projects together, initiatives together that can keep us first in line when those things are finally released. So with that, again, thank you all. We could not do this without you. We hope you feel like you're getting some traction with help from us. So at this time, if there are any questions at all for any member of our team, we're happy to answer those, or we'll always be around in the future.
All right, thank you, Carrie. Anyone have any questions for Grow Cedar Valley?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. All right, item number 2 that is on tonight's Finance and Business Operation Committee agenda is a parking permits and for downtown residents. We will start off with a presentation from Marcy Breitbach.
Good evening, everybody. So as you know, we're here tonight to do part 2 of the downtown parking permits presentation. Okay. So why we're here, this is a follow-up discussion to the June 5th, 2023 downtown parking permit presentation at the Finance and Business Operations Committee meeting. Tonight we're going to be presenting information on parking permit options for the downtown residents. So the first option we have is to continue with the current ordinance enforcing 48-hour limits in the municipal lots for parking permit holders. Just a recap of the 48-hour process. We go and chalk the tire to start the 48-hour time, and we come back to issue the citation and adhere an orange sticker if the vehicle has not been moved. We come back again then after 24 hours and adhere a green sticker and tow the vehicle if it's not moved. A vehicle is generally parked for at least 72 to 96 hours before being towed. With this option, we would issue a one-time courtesy warning if a vehicle has not received a citation for this type of violation in the past. We would continue our regular communications with Community Main Street, and we would increase the awareness by adding or clarifying parking limits on the parking permit website. We've already completed that portion. We would revise parking ordinances for improved clarity and consistency. And this particular option would be consistent with the 48-hour limit that are on our streets currently. Option 2 is a monthly resident parking permit for $100 a month with a designated parking space. This option allows the residents to park in the municipal lots for an unlimited time in a designated parking space. The exception to the unlimited parking would be residents would be required to remove their vehicle after a snowfall event to allow the city to clean the lot to avoid accumulation issues. Residents would need to submit proof of residency before a parking permit is approved by the staff. Examples of this would be an ID, a lease agreement, a utility bill, something of that nature. The definition of a resident would be those with a Main Street address. There would be one resident parking permit allowed per address, and a resident parking permits would be lot specific, just as they are now. This would reduce the number of available public parking spaces by designating those parking spaces to permit holders only. Option 3 is a monthly resident parking permit for $70 a month without a designated parking space. This would allow residents to park in the municipal lots for an unlimited time, but they would not have a designated space. The exception, again, to unlimited parking would be the residents would be required to remove their vehicles after a snowfall event to allow the city to clean the lot to avoid those accumulation issues. The residents, again, would need to submit proof of residency before the parking permit would be approved. Again, the definition of a resident would be those with a Main Street address. Again, just a one resident parking permit per address. The resident permits would again be lot specific, and this option would not create a reduction in the number of available public parking spaces. Option 4, the last option that we have for tonight, is a standard $35 monthly parking permit with the option to purchase additional daily time as desired in the same municipal lot. This would be available to all current monthly permit holders, so business or resident. There would be an additional daily cost of $3 per day, and this would be to be consistent with the cost of our construction permits that we currently offer. The additional time purchased would be a separate transaction, and this would also create no reduction in the number of available parking spaces, public parking spaces. Staff recommendation would be option number 4, the standard $35 monthly parking permit with the option to purchase additional daily time as desired in the same municipal lot. We feel that this provides an affordable option for temporary long-term parking needs. The monthly parking permits remain consistent with the 48-hour limit on the streets, and it would also create no reduction in the available public parking spaces. Are there any questions?
Yes, Councilman Cruz.
Thank you. So on the Main Street only address, is there any place that the side streets would have residence addresses, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, right there next to Main, that they'd want to be using a parking lot?
In looking at the maps, we did not see any apartments that face
Side street.
those side streets.
Okay, just curious if, I suppose we'd hear from them if, eventually. The $3 per day on option 4, then you're saying that that allows that car to sit there beyond the 48 hours based on how many, if they're going to go on a week trip, like happened.
So they would need to purchase that time ahead of time, get on there, do a separate transaction. So it'd be $3 for however many days.
They're gone a week,
Yep.
you can buy a week permit to sit in one spot.
Correct, and it would be a separate permit number labeled by us, labeled so that the parking attendants would know
And
that
these are
they've got that
just
extended
available
time.
for the residents again on Main Street.
Correct.
Okay. Is there any thought to an identifier, like window stickers, to identify Main Street people so that enforcement could be in a situation, say, they know this is a resident person, something happened where they're parked another, 12 hours past, that they could be called rather easily, or they identify the car with a sticker? Because other communities I've been in, they got parking programs, you have a sticker in the window that identifies you for that city anyway, in one particular case.
We're trying to utilize the system that we have in place in our parking enforcement system does virtually do that so that we're not trying to dig for a sticker on the windshield. I mean, you're looking at the license plate and it lets you know whether they have a resident permit or not.
So it identifies through technology.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Councilman Schultz.
On the situation of being on vacation and there's a snow event and, you know, kind of like what happened in this past winter, you could still end up with someone getting towed. Is that the situation, or is there something in place to alert, as Daryl was indicating, a phone number of a permit owner?
There's that possibility. I mean, we do, to some extent, hope that people would have somebody that would maybe help them out by moving the vehicle, you know, being in contact with either a family member, friend, that would, you know, try to help them out by moving the vehicle, or they would still have the option of going in from wherever they are and purchasing maybe some extra time.
Well, if it was, even if they purchased the extra time and then we had the snow event, if they went on vacation for a week and it snowed the day they left, by Wednesday, if they left on Sunday, by Wednesday, they could possibly be in the position to get towed.
I mean, if that phone number and some type of way to reach them is in the system, say they've actually entered that information, we could do an attempt to try to get in contact with them.
Okay. The other question I had is on percentage. In option 4, it says no reduction in number of available parking. Is there a percentage of what we're already doing or targeting? 20% was listed as an option. Are we looking at 20%?
We'd still be looking at the 20%. So for each lot that we have, you take those number of spaces and we only sell up to 20% of those spaces
Okay.
towards permits.
Yes, Councilwoman DeBer.
Well, in the scenario you're describing, if I was going to be gone for a week and I paid you the extra 21 days, doesn't that give the person the perception that they are allowed to park there for that extra 7 days regardless of whether it snowed?
And we're talking like snow emergency situations where we would.
Where you need to plow.
Right, yeah. I mean, we would go maybe that extra step in those situations. I can't say that we've run into those situations all that often, but we could take that extra step to try to contact them if they have their information in the system.
Does that create kind of a legal problem for us if we've collected extra fees for them, but then still go ahead and tow the vehicle because of the snow emergency?
That I'm not sure.
If the ordinance was clear up front, the circumstances, then it's sort of a buyer beware situation. So snow emergency would trump the permit. It'd have to be clear to the.
Because it doesn't really state it in this option 4, anything about snow.
Does not say anything in that option.
Yeah, to Susan's point is, this doesn't really resolve what happened.
No.
It still
Well,
is
kind of,
kind of arbitrarily, we could try and call, or is there a way to write that into our procedures, that
phone number needs to be
phone
in
number
there.
needs to be listed?
That's part of the licensing application, a phone number.
I could check with our vendor and make it be a required field that maybe needs to be filled in when they purchase the application so that it's not an option of whether or not that field, you know, just to confirm that it is a field that's required.
And a notification in the permit application that, to Mr. Rogers' point of buyer beware, this does not alleviate in the event of a snow emergency that your car would have to be moved regardless if you have the permit or not.
Sure. And we could put that not only in the ordinance, but we could also put that on our permit portal page to make clarification more clear there as well.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Councilman Gainfield.
just a question of clarification here. For a snow emergency, do we have to remove the snow from the parking lots, or is it just the lane of travel on the streets?
Snow
talking-
routes, I believe, that would be a Public Works question probably more directly, but from what I understand, it's the snow routes on the streets.
Correct, and
first.
Brian might be able to speak to the parking lots more generally, so.
I guess I'm assuming, and while you're coming up, I'll just talk about this a little bit. I'm assuming that we want the parking lots cleared, and if there's a deep snowfall, we want to scoop it and get it out of the area. I was just over at the university, and they sell R-lot tags. And they'll warn you right up front, hey, if your kid doesn't move their car for 2 months during the winter, it's going to be in an icicle when they come back. That is buyer beware in my mind. If option 4 is done and says, leave your car there for the time you've purchased, once your time that's purchased has expired, we will tow it at your expense to move the snow. That's how we clear it up in the ordinance. What do we do today in public lots? Brian?
Typically, as Director Schrage pointed out, when we invoke a snow emergency for clearing of the downtown, we've typically had the parking lots already cleared. So we encourage anybody that's parking on the street to move into the parking lots so that they're out of our way. So typically by that time, when we do a snow emergency, the parking lots are cleared. If there's a car that sits there for an extra few days without the snow moved off, that really don't make a big difference to Public Works.
Perfect. Thanks, Brian. I appreciate
If they've paid their extra to be there for a few extra days, that's not going to impact our operations much.
So you're saying that you wouldn't need to tow it, basically, unless it's, but you can get, what, within a foot of a car, usually pretty easily?
A couple feet, yeah, depending on what's, what obstacles are
Curbs
around
and-
it, if there's
Yeah.
medians, bump outs, whatever, so.
Okay.
Closer to yours. It's
Yeah,
only
that's
6
fine.
inches from yours.
It's already got scratches, so you can add some more.
Lose pieces of it if it was mine. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that.
You bet.
I think I'd be in favor of a hybrid solution if we're going to start talking about premium levels of service. But for this one, for $3 a day, you're buying peace of mind that says I don't have to have a neighbor friend come into town and move my car. So if we could draft the ordinance in that way, that's how option 4 would work in my mind.
In the winter, you're saying? For the
Anytime.
storm.
I mean,
Well, that's true.
yeah, I mean, it's just on them to then dig it out when they get back.
Well, and there is in our system as well, there, and I could make it ask to make it a required field as well. There's also a section for an emergency contact. So say we can't get a hold of the actual registered owner, there is a field that they can, not everybody fills it out, but there is a field to fill out for emergency contact. And so say for an extreme situation, we would need that vehicle moved, absolutely moved.
Yeah.
We could try reaching out to them as well.
I think communication and expectation clarity is the key here. I had a neighbor who just moved into town from Marshalltown, and they were sitting in the snow, and then they got tagged. So we called them and said, hey, what's up? We got their garage code, got their car moved, but we all learned something there. Having learned something from our downtown instance here, we want to provide that clarity for next time. I think we're all Cedar Falls nice enough to say, hey, your car got tagged, we're going to help you out. But in this instance, if somebody's going to pay for that service, it makes sense.
Councilman Harding.
Could we put the option 4 back on the screen? Is that possible? So I could see exactly what it said. So back to what Kevin Rogers said, that if we draft the ordinance as option 4, it doesn't say anything about it needs to be removed for snow. So we would, in that case, the permit would trump that, correct?
However council wishes to draft it, sure.
I guess my point is that the only time, pretty much what everyone's saying is, if you purchase the extra time, you should be able to leave it there, even if your car ends up with 12 feet of snow over it.
I'd recommend it be clarified in the ordinance as you're suggesting.
Okay.
In this change that we're talking about, yeah.
Yeah.
Am I wrong in thinking, I guess when I was reviewing, and I'll go ahead and write all the clarifications, but it says in the beginning of the verbiage, standard $35 a month parking permit. So I took that as, that's what we have right now, right? Am I wrong in thinking that? And right now,
Option one
do we
is
have the, with that verbiage, it's getting rid of your car if it snows? Am I wrong in thinking that?
We have, with your standard monthly permit right
Yeah.
now, it's the 48-hour.
For a snow event and stuff?
Correct.
Okay. I mean, that's the way I took it, but maybe I'm wrong.
But then
Well,
they're
with the
purchasing
standard-
extra time.
With the standard one right now, you have to move it every 48 hours anyway.
Sure.
So you would have to move it regardless of if it snows every 48 hours. So that's why I was trying to clarify, like Councilmember Ganfield, if they purchase the the additional $3 for a week, we make sure that we clarify in there that they can stay there no matter what for that week.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay, now I guess I was confused. So yes, now we're saying they can stay there no matter what because we've determined that really for Public Works, it's not a big
Exactly.
deal.
Exactly.
Okay.
$3 per day.
Per day, correct.
And then 7 times 7.
However long.
$21.
Yes, that's,
Sounds good. Okay.
In addition to the
sorry.
$35. for
yes, correct. In addition.
Councilwoman DeBur.
Option one, you could certainly add those fields that you're talking about with option one that we now have as far as phone numbers, emergency contacts. But it seems like option one gives our best service to the downtown merchants because it's allowing more turnover of spaces more frequently. And instead of prioritizing on just the residents, it's prioritizing on all the downtown businesses. So I'm a little hesitant for option four for that reason.
I'm going to piggyback on that. I think that I'm in agreement that I would like to stay where we're at. I think I've made that very clear in our last meeting. But at the same time, I understand that I was not the majority of the folks that got us to this point. And so how I look at it is option 4 is basically option 1, but just with the option to have that extra time if needed if you're going on vacation. So to me, it looks like a compromise. I don't know, but I'm very, very much in agreement with Councilwoman DeBurr. Although I support folks living in downtown, I also appreciate, especially with the conversations that we have about needed parking for patrons, I appreciate keeping as much of the parking as possible for everyone, not just downtown residents. I also, and I'm going to kind of just segue into this because I think we all have a letter from Community Main Street in front of us. I also, I think a big part of my frustration with the downtown parking, and I don't want to repeat myself, but I think I was the one that made the proposal or referred, there's been discussion. Maybe I wasn't the one that made the referral. But the discussion about the downtown parking ramp, which I'm not necessarily some big fan of, but I also recognize that this conversation doesn't seem to go away, and that that was something I believe that we had all been in agreement with, or maybe not all, but the majority had been in agreement with. And then during the budget process, I believe, if I'm recalling right, that kind of went away. So I want to make sure that, because is this in the packet? I don't know that we got it in time for the packet.
No.
But there is a letter from Community Main Street. Does anybody care if I read it? Okay, Kim will read it. Never mind, I will shut up.
Chair Dunn?
Yes, Councilman Harding.
Thank you. You are a council member as well, but
Yes, I
chair
am.
at the moment. So I was just thinking, with option 4, it says it's available to all current monthly permit holders. Maybe we limit it and to only available to residents to purchase the. Is there a reason why it would need to be available to all current monthly permit holders? Because I feel like that could possibly open up. We were here originally to talk about what is it possible for a resident to purchase extra time if they want to go on vacation because they live there. So I guess my question is, why do we offer it to all? Why would we not simply offer option 4 only to a tenant or a resident of that main street?
The reason that we stayed away from that is with eliminating to just the residents, they would need to provide some type of proof of residency. This would eliminate, because there's no way to differentiate right now. When somebody buys a monthly permit, it's just a permit. It doesn't tell you if it's a resident or if it's a business owner. It's just the permit number on there. So if somebody were wanting the additional time, they would just need, if you wanted that step in there, they would just need to provide some type of proof. It's just an additional step. We were trying to make it as seamless and simple for the person as possible.
We don't require address and phone number to purchase a permit?
They can put them in there, but you could enter any, really somebody could enter any address and purchase a permit. Because right now we aren't requiring that you prove that that's your address.
Yeah. I guess I would feel like it would be more pertinent to just the residents to have, but I don't want to overcomplicate it, so.
I guess I'm not sure how many business owners would, maybe I'm just making assumptions. I'm not sure how many business owners would leave their vehicle there and go on a vacation if they're not living there.
Or anyone that purchases, yeah. I don't know if I'm overthinking it. I've done that once or twice in the past, but so I just wanted to throw it out there. Go ahead.
Madam Chair.
Can I, since I don't mean, I'm going to have Kim talk real quick if you don't mind, and then that way we can, everyone that's listening or watching can know what I'm referring to when I talk about a letter.
I mean, you can read it. I can read it just as well as you. So I apologize that this was not to you early enough to be in the packet, but you should have received it today. On behalf of Community Main Street Board of Directors, I'm submitting a letter of support for the continued planning and development of parking in the downtown district. Over the last 18 months/18 years, CMS in our downtown, that was not in there before, sorry, that's an ad lib. CMS and our downtown stakeholders have come to a consistent consensus that a parking ramp is both wanted and needed in the downtown district. To summarize these conversations, a parking ramp located in the downtown district is necessary to promote growth and opportunity and to support the investments already made by many in the district. With the parking ramp as our shared vision for the downtown district, we support minor modifications of the parking code when necessary, but urge council to continue planning for the long-term parking needs of the entire district so that many of these minor issues may be solved with the development of a parking ramp. Speaking specifically to the parking question in front of council now, CMS believes the 20% allocation of parking spaces dedicated to permit holders is appropriate and supports the addition of a longer-term permit for downtown district residents, i.e. a vacation permit. Within this allocation, CMS does not support dedicating additional parking spots for this use. That's the option 3 or whatever that has dedicated spots. CMS supports the downtown district parking ramp, but also understand it involves many moving parts. We are hopeful to continue to be included in constructive dialogue and discussions continue on the preferred location, size, capacity, economic development potential, and parking system options are evaluated.
Thank you very much. As long as Kim's standing there, does anybody have any questions since she's right here in front of us? Councilman Schultz.
So based on your recommendation from Community Main Street, is option 4 with the verbiage specifying that you would still have responsibilities to move a car that has the permit or the even the additional, that if there's a snow emergency or notification that they could be subject to having their vehicle towed?
Yeah, and I think
Okay, can I pause that? I don't mean to cut you off, but I think that's what, am I still confused? I don't mean to cut you off, but didn't we say that we weren't going to make people move as long as they had the 7 days?
Yes.
Okay,
Whatever they
because
pay.
I was assuming that as well, Councilman Schultz, but I think where we're at is they wouldn't move.
Okay.
If it snowed, they'd be able to stay because they've already paid the
Wasn't gonna be
time, and it wasn't going to be a problem for Public Works.
So how did we end up where we ended up with getting a tow?
That
If it isn't an issue to have a
because
car in the parking
there
lot.
wasn't a 3-day vacation permit or $3 a day or anything like that for a resident to purchase in addition to their already permit. So I think actually what you've been talking about with option 1 and option 4, kind of that hybrid of the two, what we have currently, and then the 3-day, $3 a day to be consistent. I mean, I think the option of a resident who maybe gets stuck someplace and if I understand it correctly, that they can go into the portal and purchase additional days would solve all of those issues and the ones that we currently have.
That's the clarification I was looking for. Thanks.
Is that right?
Thanks, Jackie.
All right, Councilman Cruz, did you have a question?
I forgot, so we're good.
Are you sure?
Well, I think it's been said that option 4 sounds like an add-on to option 1, or what you currently have for vacations. Snow doesn't matter. My question then for someone about the same lot or different lots, or different people parking in a...
You purchase a permit for a parking lot, a specific lot.
Okay. And then, okay.
That's Marcy's question.
Well, if you purchase for a specific lot that you hope to get into, and this isn't going to guarantee anything, it's just going to give you the option to be in that lot.
Correct.
For 48 hours or 3, okay.
Correct.
So,
When they purchase the permit, they choose the lot that they feel they want to use.
I would make a motion to keep the parking regulations as they are now and add in option 4, the availability to purchase the $3 a day online, as was discussed, and also put a clause in there that says with the extra time purchased, they will not be towed due to snow.
Okay.
If it's on a vacation permit.
I'd second.
Okay, we got a motion and second. Any further conversation about this? Yes, Councilor
One
Canfield.
point, thank you, Chairman Owen. One point of clarification, is this particular downtown lot on First and Main full every year? Are they all sold? I'm looking at the instructions and it looks like there's some different numbers, so I just want to know, of that 20%, are they always sold?
The Second Street East lot is our most popular lot.
Are there any left currently?
Right now, no.
Okay.
The permits are completely, the 20% is maxed.
Okay, so we're not adding any new dedicated parking that nobody else can use or anything with this potential change?
But this, just to be clear, this option, it goes to all
Correct.
5 lots, not just
Correct.
lot.
Yes.
I guess that was what I was wondering, if someone that typically would go to busy lot can go to any lot and choose to
Only if they have a permit for
Only
that
if they have a
buy
permit.
the permit for a lot that might be more empty.
Sure,
And
yeah.
they can
We,
say-
we have people that live closer to one lot, but they choose to park in a different one because they like the layout of that lot better, or maybe there's more availability more often.
Okay.
Or maybe they enjoy the walk in the morning.
Yes, Councilman Canfield.
Sorry, just with the caveat that I'd like to see a little bit of those details on the website. We don't need to get into it all tonight, but I'd like to see some more of those details so the
Sure.
consumer knows what they're purchasing.
Sure.
Okay, any further conversation, discussion? If not, we'll do a voice vote here. Okay, seeing none, all in favor of the,
Do you want to, sorry,
sorry.
we're in a motion. Do you want to ask?
Oh,
if there's any
I
public comment?
apologize. Does anyone from the public wish to speak on this subject? Okay, seeing none. The motion is to continue with what we currently have as stated in option number 1, and then add the additional option 4, making sure to put in that we will not tow you in the event of snow. All in favor of that, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
All right, motion carries. The third item on tonight's Finance and Business Operations Committee is item number 3, City Council emails on city website. And this is going to be by Information Systems Manager Julie Sorensen.
Thank you. Okay, so we wanted to talk tonight a little bit about email. I just wanted to give you a past policy and how we came to thrive to this. In the past, any new city elected official, any new employee that has access to our network gets provisioned a city email. If the elected in the past, if the elected official preferred to utilize an email that they set up, that they used during the campaign to use for city business, an external email, they could still do that, and we automatically forwarded our email that came to our city email to that preferred external account. Unfortunately, when we implemented Office 365, the combination between that and some new settings that I had to attest that our email had qualifications for or set up for our cybersecurity insurance, between those two, we had to shut down that automatic forwarding. So they could no longer go from our network and to that external campaign email. So we had to shut that off. I came and presented and talked to you back in February about this. The problems were getting bounced back emails. You weren't getting all your emails because they weren't automatically forwarding. We had a consultant come and take a look at our network to see what was best. And he said that it really is opening our system up to vulnerabilities if we allow that forwarding to happen. And you have to have those settings on your network in order to qualify for cybersecurity insurance. So he suggested that we do not relay that any longer, shut it off, and to start using the cedarfalls.com city email. So at that time, I think the decision was made that we were going to utilize the city's network to do that. I think you voted 4-3 back in February to go ahead and utilize the city's networks for your email. So at that point, we changed the website to have everybody's email link to go to cedarfalls.com email for you guys. And we still had a shared email box that we could send one email, the citizens could send one email to everybody on the city council. And we actually set up some city devices for you guys to be able to utilize and see your emails on those devices. We provided those devices. And you guys asked, evidently have had some problems or some concerns, and you wanted to come and discuss this tonight. I really don't think I can change my stance. My recommendation is to use the city's network for your email. I have to attest for cybersecurity insurance that I have certain settings set on my network, and one of those would, for that forwarding and bounce back, that's one of those settings I have to test for cybersecurity insurance that said it's set up the most secure way. It's the best practice. There's multiple government agencies that actually utilize their network to do that. Along with that, when you keep it on our network, I have tools available to me, or the city does, to allow us to manage public records requests, searches in mailboxes. So you can have systematic searches. You don't have to have a human go look at those mailboxes. I'm attesting that this city network is secure. You have multi-factor authentication set up in order to get to your email now. And it allows us to be sure that we retain our email on our network for certain things. We have different types of holds we can put on an email box that make sure you can't delete emails, so we can attest that those tools are available to us in order to utilize our network. So I really can't change my recommendation. We have to use the network because of that cybersecurity insurance just to make sure it's the best practice. But I think there's some still sentiment that you guys would like to utilize some external emails. So to utilize an external email, that would mean you wouldn't utilize the city's network at all. You wouldn't be able to manage, or you would have to be responsible for managing those public records requests. You would take the responsibility to secure that email, whether you have your multi-factor authentication. You're going to attest that it's set up this most secure way. And you're also going to agree to retention. So if you would have an instance where you needed to have a hold on that mailbox, like I have 2 former council members' email boxes right now held in retention policy. You would take that responsibility even if you aren't in office. If it needs to be retained, you would go ahead and do that. And then we would just not have the security policies at all. I mean, the security is set up for that if you want to use those external email addresses. The one thing, if you choose to do that external email address, is we would have to take down that shared mailbox for the citizens to use, that one-stop shop that goes to all the city council members. We wouldn't be able to utilize that any longer. So the citizens would have to choose the 7 or so different emails that they would want to send if they wanted to send to everybody in the council. So that's really kind of the 2 options, just to utilize your own external emails, not utilize the network at all, because I can't make the network, I can't open up those exceptions to utilize like we had in the past. And that's my 2 recommendations. Are there any questions?
Thanks, Julie. Yes, Councilman Harding.
So now that I'm set up with the city server, I like it. It's fine. Outlook, I believe. And if the vote is to choose to use personal, can I still use my city one?
Yes.
So, okay, I'm just making sure.
We can have the mix, but what we can't have is that one shared mailbox for the citizens to utilize to send one email to everybody at once.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, that being said, it's pretty standard practice everywhere. If you get hired at a business or anything to use the email for that company, it's standard practice to use the email server of whomever you're doing business with. And even though we are elected officials, I think it provides a certainty of assurance and I'm blanking on the word, but to have a Gmail account is great, but to have at cedarfalls.com is more authoritative. And I truly believe that having an at cedarfalls.com email address and having citizens be able to click one thing and get to all of us is the best way to do it. And I'm no tech person, but I was able to set mine up on the computer, at my computer, and log in using my phone with the double authentication. And I even was able to set it up on my phone by myself. So if we choose to go whichever way, I'm fine with it, but I would like to stay the way it is, and I will offer my services to help anyone set it up on their phone that is a council member. That service is not extended to everyone.
We actually,
Diane did mine, so I'm
Yeah.
done.
Okay.
and we actually provide, like I said, we provide city devices too,
Yeah.
to put that on. Yep.
Madam Chair.
Councilman Schultz, yes.
Is the reason that you could no longer use the one-stop email because you didn't want to promote that, hey, this is going to everybody, or is there
No,
a
it's
technical?
It's that exception, that hop that it takes, when it comes to our shared mailbox here on our server, then it hops out to a Gmail or, an AOL or another external email. And because it's coming here first and then hopping back out, it's suspect to a lot of the other checks and balances that the receiving server says, hey, this looks like it's spoofed, is what they call it. So it looks like it landed in the cedarfalls.com, but it didn't. But it's going out to another external server. So it looks to me like somebody's trying to act like they're coming from cedarfalls.com, and they're not really coming from cedarfalls.com.
So you couldn't just load in the ones that were or are,
right,
and leave it at that.
They would, right. I mean,
And-
those that would choose to use an external email would not get that email.
Right. So
Yep.
that's just the way it goes.
Well,
And could we do an automatic, hey, these are the council people that you've notified?
I guess we could. I guess I would like to just keep it consistent with everybody,
Yeah, me too.
So
Yeah. Okay.
that was my fear, that those emails weren't going to go to those external emails.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Councilman Ganfield.
So I don't want to get too in the weeds on it, but I guess I'm looking at this thinking we should be able to put in a security exception for the known email addresses that are external. So John Q. Citizen emails citycouncil@cedarfalls.com. It lands in our domain, and a distribution list includes a known AOL, a known Gmail. Can we add in known exceptions and then it doesn't bounce back?
He did talk about that, and he said that it does open up vulnerabilities you probably don't want to open up to your system. Because we did have the consultant look at that and, to see if can we do the exceptions just for those certain, his advice was against it.
And I guess I'm just asking for clarity there because those are the problems. That's where it bounces back.
Yeah, and it's
So
not.
it's not spoofed.
It's not specific. I think he was setting it up to be like the actual last part of that email. So it was more wide. But I have what he put. He says it's just not best practice to allow external forwarding. As a matter of fact, it's risk to allow that relay to an external recipient. So.
Yeah. Our IT security department has grown in size and they're adding in mandates where I work as well. I totally understand that. But when there's a business necessary risk, we have to afford that opportunity. Opening up to, *@gmail.com is unwise. But if we were to say
specific email address.
Yeah, I think that's something to think about. Another concern I have with the FOIA requests, if John Q. Citizen emails me at my personal email or at my campaign email that they still know, when we attest that we can comply with FOIA, are we communicating that out to all council persons to say, hey, also give me what they also sent you in electronic format? Because we are the ones that have to comply in that regard.
Correct. And I
Okay.
think we do. I'm talking because usually Jackie's the one that takes
Yeah,
care of it, but yes.
typically.
She goes out and she asks those, do you have any in your personal email?
Just want to make sure that wasn't overlooked.
Yep.
One concern I have, and being one that was in favor of moving to the Cedar Falls domain side, I just want to make sure I stated this, that we were in the capacity of a recommending body when we heard this discussion before and talked about it, and it went 4-3 that we should move in this direction. So this vote to change policy and to deviate from the status quo never met council. So I wanted to make sure that we continued that discussion. I've had a change of heart that I think we do, for the sake of our citizens and our availability to them, have the opportunity to say, hey, let's utilize these personal. I'm not certain about the way it goes down, but I think we would be back in that same. So this, conversation to come to figure out where everybody's at tonight, I'd be in favor of using whatever's most accessible for our citizens to get in touch with us. And then we also have to take on the onus of complying with FOIA and security and things of that nature. So I appreciate those insights. That's all.
I'm going to talk real quick because I just last week sent a email to a different city in the Cedar Valley, and I couldn't find when we talk about that one-click stop, I couldn't find that on their website. So I had to, visualize each person's email. After a while, you kind of get it. It's usually their name, dot, blah, blah, blah. But a couple of them, they must be in the same boat as us because there was some personal emails. Long story short, what I sent bounced back from several of them. I guess what I'm getting at when we talk about accessibility, I love that one-stop button. I love that I know that it gets to everyone, and I think there's multiple folks that have actually said they enjoy that, and when it doesn't work, it's frustrating for them. I am not a tech person, but I understand the risk that we put ourselves at because I think as some of us have said, if you work for a company, they drill into your head about the importance of cybersecurity, and they're constantly doing phishing alert, like testing things to teach you, don't just click on anything. So when we're talking about our city and putting our city at risk of a cyber attack and having to possibly pay a large ransom to get our, I may not be saying this back, but our network or our system back, that's incredibly frightening. And I find it kind of odd that it's not frightening to everyone this day and age. I just want to, and also the public records part. That's a law. And I guess I was one of the ones that operated on my campaign email until I was told that, this is the problem and why we need to go this way. So I, too, have been on the cedarfalls.com email. I couldn't get it set up properly on my little device, so I came in and IT nicely walked me through and sent me out the door with it all working. So I hope that we understand the risk and why we are here. And I think that was stated back in February, but we can put our whole city's system at risk. Is that correct? Like our whole, everything.
It opens up that,
Yeah. I mean, is that how cyber attacks happen?
most of them, 80%, start with an email.
Yeah. I mean, okay.
Madam
That's
Chair,
it.
Not at all to refute that, but we've had dozens of emails inviting us to open someone's pics that continuously get to us. So, I mean, we're not going to be able to mitigate all bad actors anywhere.
Oh, I don't get those, so, okay.
Check your spam.
Councilwoman DeBur.
Julie, is there a way that you can, she talked about when she sent an email, she got a notice back that said it never got delivered. We don't have that currently with when someone is using that one-click thing, and they have the assumption that we all receive the email. And I had someone who had a dog incident, and they said, well, why didn't you respond? Well, I never got it. So do we have a way of letting the people know when they send something that it was not deliverable?
That's what started the conversation in February, is because some of the emails that were going to, I think, actually Daryl's email box were bouncing back to us, or bouncing back.
And mine.
Yep.
Yeah, but this person, they sent it, is there nothing you can put on so that they would know that it was not opened or delivered?
Not opened or delivered.
Not received.
I think if it's not delivered, they're going to get a bounce back. You know, their email is going to get it back to them. So, yes.
But regardless if we're each using, we each have an account out there, is that correct?
Yes.
So for example, I have an account, Gil.Schultz, so Susan has an account. So it went to that account, she just doesn't have it set up.
Yeah, if you didn't set it up, you wouldn't receive that. I mean, it's in the cedarfalls.com email.
So that's why it won't bounce back saying, hey, it didn't get opened or received, or it didn't get sent, because it did get sent, it's just.
Yep, it's sitting in that
being read
inbox.
in that account, okay.
And just a reminder, we've all had at cedarfalls.com emails for years. It's yes.
Yeah, it was until we went through 0365. I mean, it just bounced through. We allowed that forwarding.
That's what I was going to say. We've all had at Cedar Falls emails. I've had an at Cedar Falls email. It was just forwarded to me. we were allowing forwarding. I started having issues. So with the forwarding, and again, if we want to go to personal, you know, it's kind of 6 to 1, half dozen the other to me, because I'm going to use what I'm going to use. I just want everyone to realize that we've always had at cedarfalls.com emails for years. It's always been that way. It's just been forwarded to you. We just can no longer forward. So it's not a new thing to have at cedarfalls.com. And my last piece on it is change can be hard. I've realized this. I kind of tend to like change. That's my personality. I realize not everyone's like that. I think, you know, you're going to continue to have an at cedarfalls.com email, even if you use the personal one on the website. It's really not that hard to set up your at cedarfalls.com email and use it on your phone or on your personal computer. You don't have to have an extra device, although they will provide you an extra device.
Provide you, yes.
So anyway,
Madam Chair.
Okay,
feel free
yes.
to motion away.
Councilman Cruz.
I just want to have the certainty that citizens' emails are getting directly to me, and what Susan is describing, you can't verify that it's getting out to me. The citizen, when they email, they can't get verification. I think many citizens would want to have the individuality to go directly to, and that's what I've been told. I don't know that the shared box is that big a deal, to be honest. I think keeping individuals, because I had my AOL for decades, works just wonderful. Never been hacked. People laugh. Kind of dates us maybe a little bit. But I mean, I'm confused on the known exceptions, as Dustin is describing, that it can be done, apparently, but
It just opens up, just risk is all.
I mean, if there's
Accept
known
that risk.
exceptions, and this, you can explain the techie stuff sometime, but you got 3, 4 of us that want our personal. Those are the 4, let's say 4, that want it personal, so the citizens can talk right to us. That doesn't go to the city server anyway, right? If somebody's emailing me directly.
At your AOL, correct.
Correct, yeah. And then it's my responsibility to take care of FOIA and preserve the emails.
Yes.
That's not a problem. I mean, I don't see that as a problem. So I'm in favor of allowing the individual emails and then not having the shared box.
And stop.
Okay, so I guess at this point, what direction do you want a voice vote to kind of give staff direction, or you got a feel for it? Should we just do a voice vote? Okay, so
We need a motion.
Yep. So someone, if they could make the motion that they're seeking.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we are allowed to keep our personal emails if we choose to, and if it entails not having the shared box, then that'd be the case.
Yes.
I'd like just one point of clarification
Okay,
that.
first, not to be technical, but
To be.
is it about the motion? Okay.
It is.
Okay.
I don't want to get confused that just because we have a shared mailbox that people aren't able to individually email us
Correct.
Yeah, you can still individually.
at the Cedar Falls.
If you
Yep. So
maintain that Cedar Falls, yes.
Yes, okay.
Okay. We got a motion, we got a second?
Second.
All right, motion second, any further discussion? All right, so voice vote. So all in favor of the motion on the floor, which is to allow council to use their personal email addresses. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Nay. Hands, can we get a hands, who, for aye, please raise your hand. Okay, and the nay, raise your hand. All right, we got that, Madam Chair? Or, sorry, Madam Clerk. Aye, Madam Chair.
So maybe just a couple points of clarification, Madam Chair. So since that, there's no reason or there's no action that would be taken at council, so this is the direction that we're now going to head. So as Mr. Ganfield pointed out, is last time there was no action taken at council. So this is really the practice that will move forward. And then I think just for Julie's sake, to know what is the email that you would like, please email her that so she has what to put on the website then. Is that?
Yep.
Then-
So the action that I'll take from this is I'll update the website to anybody who wants that external email. And then we'll just go send a letter validating, the responsibilities that go along with
Sure.
having your own external email.
So, if I may,
Yes.
the cedarfalls.com, for the people that choose personal, will no longer be out there for departments.
Correct.
Because I was told by different department heads that, I emailed you, and I'm like, oh, I didn't see it.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, with that, I think we've got direction for staff, and we'll move on over to the Public Works Committee.
I don't know if
Okay.
I'll gavel on that to get this Public Works Committee begun, and tonight I move. Thank you, Mr. Sires. So, Mr. Wiki, you are up first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, committee members. This presentation that I'm going to give tonight regards investigating all-way stop at the intersection of Lone Tree Road and Center Street. This come about at a council referral from the February 6th council meeting, and it was a request at time to investigate all-way stop at that intersection. The way the intersection is currently laid out, there's a Center Street is a through street, and Lone Tree Road is stop controlled on Lone Tree Road. So that's how the intersection is currently set up. So when we look at evaluating an all-way stop, we are governed by 3 criteria that we basically look at, and those criteria come out of the Manual Uniform Traffic Control Devices, MUTCD. And they are, if an all-way stop is to be considered, the criteria are if it's an interim measure, when there's a traffic signal that's warranted at that intersection is one criteria. Another one is that we look at the crash data. And then the third one is we look at the volumes at that intersections. One thing that I would like to note here is that stop signs are not used as traffic calming devices. There are the 3 criteria above are the criteria that is used when determining when an all-way stop is used. So I just want to make that clear. And then I'll run through the criteria that's laid out in the MUTCD. The first criteria is if it's used as an interim measure when there's a traffic signal warranted at that intersection. So traffic control signals are justified. When they are justified, the multi-way stop is an interim measure that can be installed quickly to control traffic while arrangements are being made for the installation of a traffic control signal. This intersection does not meet, there's several warrants that are laid out in the MUTCD for the use of a traffic signal, and these warrants are not met in any way for a signal at this intersection. Moving on to the next criteria. Second criteria is crash data. If there's 5 or more reported crashes in a 12-month period that are susceptible to be corrected by a multi-way stop, then that's a criteria that's evaluated. Over the last 12 months, there's only been 1 incident at this intersection, and that accident would not have been avoided whether there's an all-way stop there or not. And then just furthermore, along that line, over the last 5 years, there's only been 3 recorded crashes at this intersection. And then our third criteria, this is a 2-part criteria. Third criteria is the volumes. So if the vehicular volume entering the intersection from the major street approach averages at least 300 vehicles per hour in any 8 hours of an average day, and the major street for this is Center Street, that's the through street. And the data that we got shows that the combined vehicles entering the approach from both directions was 285, so that warrant was not met. The second part to this criteria is has to do with the 85th percentile. So if the 85th percentile approach speed of the major traffic exceeds 40 miles an hour, then the minimum vehicular volume warrants are 70% of the values provided. So that would be that 70% of that 300 vehicles. So the speed that we found on Center Street was that the northbound 85th percentile speed was 38 miles per hour, and then the southbound 85th percentile speed was 37 miles per hour. The speeds are within the 5 miles an hour of the posted speed limit threshold for a traffic control measure. So that criteria is not warranted as well. So none of the criteria that were laid out in the MUTCD were not met that would justify an all-way stop at this intersection. And I would just like to kind of talk a little bit on some of the reasons why we don't just arbitrarily put up stop signs. You know, before any stop sign goes in, there has to be a traffic study, an engineering study has to be conducted. Traffic control devices, including stop signs, need to be consistent and uniform with other stop signs that are set up in other corridors in the city. So we want to have that uniformity and that consistency so it doesn't cause driver confusion. Stop sign effectiveness. Stop signs are used in situations where other traffic control measures such as yields or roundabouts would not be as effective. So, you know, if we just arbitrarily start putting up stop signs, they lose their effectiveness over time because drivers are conditioned to understand and anticipate stop signs where they should be located on street networks. One of the big ones is we open ourselves up to liability if we just arbitrarily put up a stop sign without it being justified. So that's a big one. And then, you know, so if a stop sign, if an all-way stop does, if council decides that they do want to put an all-way stop up there, a couple things, there will be consequences. One would be increase in noise level at that intersection, people stopping and taking off on where they normally have that through on Center Street. So I just want to point out that there could be unintended consequences along the way. So I do have some recommendations, though, that could be considered for this intersection. So on the major cross street, which is Lone Street, we could add a intersection ahead sign, and that would just give an awareness of the intersection ahead. And then on the major, that's on the major street on Center Street, sorry, you put an intersection ahead sign just to bring awareness to the intersection. And then on the minor cross street, Lone Tree, under the stop sign, you could add the plaque of cross traffic does not stop. So those are the recommendations that we have. Again, none of the warrants were met that would justify all-way stop at this intersection. And, you know, us as engineers, we have to operate under what we have a code of ethics. And so when we, you know, do these traffic studies and determine what the data actually bears out. We want to follow what's laid out in guidelines, whether that's, MUTCD or other governing guidelines and rules that are out there. I just want to put that out there is that we do operate based on this code of ethics, so we don't just, do things, kind of fly by the seat of our pants type operations. So just for your consideration. And with that, I'll entertain any questions.
Okay. Mr., let's see, I think, I think you were ready. Go ahead, sir.
I had a couple questions.
Yeah.
So I respect the data and I appreciate it. The question I would have is, we use the MUTCD, was that what you called it?
Correct. Manual Uniform Traffic Control Devices. It's a publication that's administered by the Federal Highway Administration.
So my questions would be multifold. One, are there other sets of guidelines or that municipalities use, or is this like the only one that people use for for comparing these numbers?
So this is the main document or the main publication that we use in our profession to, collect the data and go through the data and see what the data says and how it's applied to, not just always stops, but all kinds of different traffic control devices.
And the main reason I ask is some of the numbers that they're like right below the threshold or fairly close, especially if you factor the 70% and it's within a mile per hour of the 40 mile per hour. So, there seems to be a large contingency of people that want that there. So my question becomes, while respecting the data, since it's so close to the threshold, where is that liability line? I get what you're saying with the ethics, and I totally respect that. But that's what makes this such a tough decision, because the numbers are close. There are a lot of people that want it. And so how do you balance that? So I guess I would ask Kevin Rogers, is that 1 mile per hour, does that, if there's magically a crazy wreck there, open up the city to liability if we put in a four-way stop because of that, or how does that work?
So, as a general matter, I'm not real familiar with this particular manual, but usually there's not really much fudge factor. The way they approach it is there's a multiple way of getting there, and in this case, I guess there's 3 ways to get there, none of which were reached, and so. It's not just, hey, it's A and A only or get out of town. It's A, B, or C. Any one of those would justify it. So there is some flexibility a little bit within it. From a liability standpoint, I'd kind of turn it. I'd ask Mr. Wiki, after my client was injured, I'd say, so your city didn't have a certain device there. And Mr. Wiki'd say, well, no. And I'd say, why not? And he'd say, well, we follow this manual. And I'd say, always? And if we put up a stop sign, he'd say, well, not always. I'm home with the jury then. I got it. That's number one. Number two is kind of the reverse. If we do put in a stop sign that it's not called for at that intersection and an accident did occur, that leads to the same problematic questions for our engineering department.
So my last question would be, we always follow MUTCD in our city, and that's what we use 100% of the time?
When we're looking at various different types of traffic studies for, different types of traffic control devices or, traffic speed studies is another example, we always follow the MUTCD.
Okay, that answers my questions. Thank you.
Yeah, before I go to Mr. Cruz, again, to Mr. Rogers' point, it's either way. You could get sued for not, you could get sued for having, And there's always, okay, so what criteria we use? And if that criteria is also, well, the council vote or the citizens petitioned. But, Mr. Cruz.
Thank you. Mr. Wiki, or Mr. Rogers, I guess, too. In one hand, we evaluate this intersection and slice and dice it, 3 criteria, but we're not doing other intersections that might be close to this. Does that then create a liability if there's a crash in another intersection that's open, but we put a sign here? I mean, it's the flip of either jury or either argument by an attorney.
No, so the standard for, this is an immunity question, is at the time of the act, did the city comply with the standards at the time? If the city has done so, generally speaking, now it'd be immune from liability.
Okay. With that being said then, thank you. You're saying with one of these criteria you could justify the stop or potentially argue for it, or do you need all 3 or 2 of the 3?
You don't necessarily need all 3, but you have a much stronger case if you do meet all 3. If you meet 2 out of the 3 and look at the third one and see how close you come to meet the third one, then you can make an engineering judgment.
Seasonal traffic, maybe, something like that, possibly. Okay. Then my question is, the posted speed is 35. I'm assuming there was a speed study done at some point that justified 35 and not 30 or 40?
So if you're talking about the posted speed,
correct,
on the corridor, when the roadway would have been originally designed, it would have been designed for a design speed, and usually the design speed of a roadway is about 5% high, or 5 miles an hour higher than what the posted speed is. So at the time, it would have had a 40 mile an hour design speed, and then a posted 35 mile an hour speed, and that's typical that we see in our corridors that are minor arterial corridors, which Center Street is through this.
Right. I know different discussions have been on South Main, where we go past the falls and we change speeds. University going west was changed, and the speed study dictated that. And I think 12th Street was also undone not too long ago. But
west of Hudson, yep.
Yeah. I like the recommendations you have. I think that'll improve. I guess at some point we'll hear from the citizens what specific situations they're concerned about, because 3 accidents in 5 years that didn't appear to fit a criteria that you mentioned?
No. You should, the criteria states 5 in 1 year. And we
But
only
then
had
it was
1.
also whether a stop sign would have alleviated the crash, that
Correct.
component, and these
Right.
3 didn't.
That's another part of that.
That's the part I was zeroing in on. Okay.
So I would like to move on to public comment before we come back to council. Is there any citizens that want to come to the stand and make public comment? And note there, in our packet that I received, Madam Clerk, we received 5 or 6 pages of petition signatures, and we'll discuss that at public comment too.
I'm Steve Smith. I live at 2528 Cottage Row Road, and members of the North Cedar Neighborhood Association. And as several of you know who regularly attend our association meeting, thank you for coming. There has been a lot of concern about the traffic there, and I would note that of the 3 criteria, we are quite close to meeting 2 of them. There is no mention in the criteria of school zone, and that is a school zone. There are kids walking on both sides of that street all the time, coming and going. There's also no mention of the fact that that's a crossing for the bike path, which is heavily used. And we use that all the time. And in our travels on the bike path, that is the most dangerous place that we encounter. The traffic's turning, the traffic on Center Street does not stop, and it's an exciting little adventure every time when the traffic is there to cross that street. The improvement that was made to Center Street made that street much more narrow, and I think when the study was done to designate the speed limit on that street, it was a different sort of a street, different sort of a roadway. And I think that with these considerations that are not considered by the three criteria that I understand are used in the judgment, maybe some consideration would be given to the desires of the citizens who use that intersection all the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Jim Newcomb, 407 Longview Street. I serve as the president of the North Cedar Neighborhood Association, and I'm here to represent the neighborhood, basically. I've lived in Cedar Falls since 1976 in North Cedar, and we've seen some great improvements to our neighborhood, the last being, of course, the Center Street improvement. And I think what Smitty mentioned is very clear. We're not here to upset any apple cart, to defeat any engineering degree or engineering standards. What we'd like to see is safety for our neighborhood. And crossing Center Street at Lone Tree Road is a dangerous event. We have a lot of traffic flowing down Center Street, and I don't, when the speed survey was done, but speed is our enemy on Center Street. And you go from a Lone Tree speed of 45 miles per hour to a 35 on Lone Tree, but we have a lot of traffic. And we're here for the safety. The petitions that you've seen have all been pretty much in favor, a couple no, but mostly our neighborhood and our community want to see a four-way stop there. And I would really ask the council to give that some consideration. And I speak from not only myself, but the neighborhood and the people in North Cedar. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Newcomb. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
My name is Mark Sharp. I live at 3018 Cypress. I've been there in that neighborhood since '76. I've grown up in the Cedar Falls, either rural or town, since '59. I am very familiar with that road, Center Street. Originally, it was US 218 highway. And I would venture to say that this current speed limit of 35 and used to be 45 through some of it was due because it was a highway. It is no longer a highway. It's a public city street. And you have residents and school children, and the bike crossing is huge with respect to trying to cross Center. So I would like you to reconsider that, and I understand and I respect what the engineering, they've got to do what they've got to do, but I think we're dealing with different animals here, so, and different fruit, so please consider that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amy Jardin. I live at 2214 Vine Street, and I have not lived in the neighborhood as long as they have, but for a couple of decades. And I would say, as somebody who runs and bicycles in the neighborhood, people don't pay attention to the sidewalks and trails unless you're somebody who uses the sidewalks and trails. So you can be waiting for somebody to slow down on Center Street for you as a pedestrian to cross the intersection, and they're never going to stop. You can wait for somebody to come to their stop at Lone Tree, and they're just going to go ahead and make their right-hand turn on red on the stop sign without paying attention to who's there, whether it's an adult like me or an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old school child doing that. And then we don't currently meet the vehicles going through the area, but there's a housing development that's proposed for the north side in that area, which is going to dump more traffic out onto Lone Tree.
and they're only going to have the option to go out Lone Tree to Center Street to get into the area. So we're trying to get proactive and get ahead of the situation we're going to have. Otherwise, we'll be back here again. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
I'm Mark Succi. I live at 3202 Cypress Avenue. And I'd just like to point out, I was wondering on the study they did, and on criteria 3, it was all on traffic study, but did they ever do a study on pedestrian traffic that goes across the street, on the number of people? It is a heavy used bike trail, and a lot of times it's families. It's not just the hardcore bikers, it's moms and dads with their kids on bikes trying to cross the street. And if you look at Center Street, there isn't any safe pedestrian crossing other than the school crossing at a certain time of the day when there's people watching it. But if you go the whole length of Center Street, there isn't one crossing where the traffic has to stop, where it's safe for the public to go across Center Street. And this is a heavy one with the bike traffic and joggers and just walkers. So I think the study should have also included pedestrian traffic and watching that, and with the criteria being close in a couple of them, I really think that for safety purposes, for pedestrians and car traffic, that it should be a four-way stop.
Thanks, Mark. Anyone else? Then I'll bring it back to council for more discussion.
Mr. Chairman.
Sires?
This is a question for Mr. Wiki. Did you consider the bike trail and the pedestrians and all those other things? I had that written in my notes too, and Mark hit right on the head, because there is quite a bit of that traffic there where the pedestrians cross across Center Street when they're on Lone Tree.
So if we're talking about pedestrian crossings, now we're talking about something different. Again, we don't put up stop signs to control pedestrian traffic. We have different traffic, we have different measures for pedestrian crossings. So those are different things that we can consider and maybe look at, but.
Yeah, I was just curious if you considered that on this, that's all.
No, we just looked at the criteria to evaluate the four-way stop.
Okay, thank you. I've got some feelings on this. Since I grew up in Cedar Falls, that was Highway 218. And when we'd come into town, it was always 55. And it always looked about the same, just a little bit north of town there. So it would be nice to have a four-way stop sign. I know that the city engineers kind of disagree with that. But the nice thing is not too far down from there, and I was going to ask this, if you had thought about where that school crossing is as well. And that would stop the traffic, because I always find myself, and I don't want to get a ticket from Mr. Howard back there, but I always find myself a little over 35 as I come down through there. And to get reminded, it'd be nice to have a stop sign there, and then go on, and then we would be well aware at the slower speed of that crossing where the school is. So all those things considered, and all the people in North Cedar who would like that, this is their neighborhood, and I'd like to see that we get them their stop sign. But thank you, Mr. Wiki, for your answers. That's all.
Sure. Mr. Chair.
Mr. Cruz?
Thank you. To carry on with that thought, I had the pedestrian count before anybody said that. That was popping in my mind, because on Union Road in my ward, there's been numerous attempts to ask about, I call it the flashing beacon, whatever the name of that device is that you push the button and it's like really flashing. And I know there's a criteria for putting that in. That would be the discussion here warrants a study for the pedestrian aspect of it, I think. I'd like to see that take place. And then, because I know that has to be approved through the same process. Or can you speak to that?
You're referring to what we call a hawk signal. It's a hybrid signal. Those are typically used at mid-block crossings or school crossings. And there's a separate study that would have to be undertaken to evaluate those. but we don't see those typically at intersections.
Okay, on South Union Road, when they did the bike trail, there's 2 of them there, right at the intersections.
You're referring to the RRFB, the rapid beacons.
Okay, and how's that differ than what he just described?
A hawk signal is more of a traditional, full-blown traffic signal. It looks just like a
Oh,
traffic
okay. So they could push the button and trigger okay. Well, both of those have evaluation criteria. I'm familiar with that on Union Road. Could or should that be done here to evaluate the, what do you call it again, flashing?
The rapid beacon. We can sure take a look at the pedestrian crossing separately, sure.
Yeah, I think that's based on comment and what is brought forward other than just the traditional stop sign criteria. I think it's worthy of continued study for sure.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ganfield.
Thank you, Chairman. Not to disagree with the data and the metrics, because I think those are valuable for us. I would think because we're so close to the thresholds of that 300 in volume, it's like 285, and if it were a 40 mile an hour, it'd be 210. I mean, we're really close on a couple of those, as some of the citizens up there have said. It's not a competition up here, but I think we ought to put in a stop sign there for now and see how it goes. We're going to be continuing to grow volume in that area, and I'm not in favor of paying for another study when we know that's the direction it's going. We're already at those thresholds. It's going to be over that soon. We are developing a neighborhood up there. So I would go ahead and make a motion that this committee recommends to council to move and put a stop sign, a 4-way stop sign in there, including painted pedestrian crossing.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to move ahead with putting a 4-way stop signs at Lone Tree and Center. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
I think the ayes carry.
Mr. Chair, just to
Yes,
follow
sir.
up on that, so what'll happen then is the staff will bring back an ordinance after the 3 readings are approved. Public Works will install those.
Okay. Thank you. So I believe that brings us to an end of the committees for tonight. It is nearly 7 o'clock, but let's take a 10-minute break, or excuse me, make it a 7-minute break, and we'll come back at 7:05. Thank you.